Well, hello, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining. Thanks a lot for taking the time. Today, we are having a special guest here. My name is Oleg. I'm the founder of Extrovert. Stefan here is my partner, will be helping me with questions. So let's make this webinar interactive. Please go ahead and ask your questions, share your opinions. We have the chat. And don't hesitate to talk because we will address them as they come. And now, please let us know if you can hear us well. Everything good with picture and with sound. And I'm super excited about Louis, about today's guest, because correct me if I'm wrong, but you are the founder of Stand the Fuck Out, the B2B positioning and GTM consultancy agency. And you also worked with companies like super huge companies like Hotjar, Ahrefs, Dropbox, Hostinger, right? So you have pretty strong hot takes about positioning and about struggles like how do we actually stand out, especially in today's world where AI makes everyone look the same. So super excited about the today's talk. We won't have any slides today. We will just ramble and ask our questions. And feel free to ask your questions as well. Before we start, can you please tell the audience a couple of words about yourself?
Bonjour, bonjour. Yeah, good to be here. Thank you so much for taking the time to organize this and send stuff to your people. I'll be quick. I just wrote a book called Stand the Fuck Out. It's essentially my life's work. Everything I've learned on how to make an actual company stand out, even if you don't have true innovation, even if you don't have a lot of resources. And that's what I do day to day. I just obsess over that. I'm a recovering Frenchman and living in Ireland for the last 15 years, and it's really hot today.
Yeah, it is. It is. I was just walking with my dog with before the talk, and he said like, "Please go inside. Please go inside."
It's unreal. So yeah, I will repeat what you said about folks listening. I know it's traditionally, you come in and you watch people talk and ask questions and stuff like that, but don't be afraid to interrupt us and, ask question in the chat or anything like that. More than happy to take on anything. I don't need to see questions in advance or anything. So if you have anything specific you want to know, um, don't be afraid to ask, please.
Cool. Super cool. So let's start. Maybe not everyone from the audience is aware about your frameworks, but you are actually a guy with a framework and with actually pretty solid, like several takes. And let's just before we begin trying to extract your wisdom from you, can you please like frame the problem, like why is it that you say that AI is making B2B sameness worse? What is the issue here?
It used to be hard to stand out. It used to be hard to build stuff, and then it used to be hard to market them. Nowadays, it's easier to build anything, much harder to market them. The noise is getting louder. Everyone with a brain and an internet connection can create anything they want really at this stage. So the only thing left is the ability to reach people, make them notice you in some way, understand why they should pick your solution above anyone else's without being sleazy, because long-term brand, the way people see you, the way they talk about you is going to be even more important since the rest kind of becomes commoditized. So that's why it's one of those things I don't need to explain it for that long. People get it. It's just so fucking busy out there, especially in our space, especially in this time of like smaller SaaS and tech. It's just, yeah, I don't think to go to ramble about that. I think everyone gets it.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. But what stood out to me is that you just said that you can stand out even without real innovation, even without the actual ground stuff that makes
Yeah.
you different. Is it true?
So
Is it actually true?
yeah, absolutely. And without being sleazy, without selling your soul, without without having nightmares at night for behaving like an absolute sleazebag. So the key, and we talked about that before we started this call, there's a huge difference between the work, the amazing work of April Dunford and what I've tried to do. So she wrote this amazing book called obviously Awesome about positioning, and she really helped to make the discipline of positioning very much front and center. Um, Her framework is super useful if you have a company that has true innovation baked in, because it uses that as a way to say, okay, we have a couple of features that others don't, we solve problems, therefore that others don't solve well, and therefore this is your positioning. From my experience, this is why I wrote the book. It breaks when you don't have a genuine differentiation, genuine like innovation. Like your product is essentially commoditized compared to others. Your feature set is the same as others, and you can't, in good faith, say, "Hey, we are so different." So that's the first thing where it breaks. And the second part is like it doesn't really touch on things that I would classify to be more irrational, less like this is the compelling reason for us to choose you, this is the positioning, this is the formula, uh, and more about like distinctiveness. So even in commoditized market, even where every feature set looks the same, you can still stand the fuck out. You can still do things that are different. It doesn't mean that your product will be different. You need to make peace with that. Demand is there, and if there's demand, there's money. If there's money, there's competitors, and that's okay. But you can still do a lot with distinctiveness, which is how to get noticed, how to make sure you look like yourself, but also different from the rest. And the GTM part, which now people call GTM, go to market, whatever you want to call it. So that's why I had to write this book. And funnily enough, it's more and more relevant, not less and less.
Yeah. Just to quickly clarify, when you say product, you mean product and service, right? Because a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
folks
whatever.
listening, yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of folks listening are agencies. So basically the same. So if I understood correctly, what you talk about in your framework, it is actually distinct four distinct steps, right? If I can call this like that. So the first step you call insight foraging. So basically extracting insights from people that you talk to, right? Can you
Yes.
please talk to it a little bit? And what stood out to me is that you call some insights poisonous that
Yeah.
can really break your, strategy. Like, what are they?
Yeah.
How do I tell them apart?
I think that's a big mistake a lot of people do, especially nowadays where it's much easier to extract insight, is to really pay attention to things that you shouldn't being pay attention to, that you should be very careful about. Because essentially anything that comes from future talk, such as asking people what they will do next, anything future based, out. You want to focus on recent experiences, recent purchases, recent events that people have actually experienced and be able to retrieve those steps. So you want to look at things that have been done, not things that might be done. That's one of the worst thing to do. So it's very easy to run customer interviews, very easy to send surveys that are there to compliment you and make you feel good, where you learn absolutely nothing. Um, so my rule of thumb is only pay attention to people who have recently bought something from you or a competitor, or at least they spend a huge amount of time and or resources and or reputation to try to solve that problem, and forget the rest, even if the rest makes you feel good. It's kind of it's the hardest thing to do, um, because your brain will like to go that way. So yeah, that's what I mean by poisonous. Like you need to be very careful with those because you can build a house of cards essentially, right? You build a foundation that are very shaky from the start, and then everything is bad. So just to clarify, by insight, insight, I mean the core things to understand how people buy in your category, right? So what is the job? The job to be done? What is the ultimate goal? What alternatives have they considered? What struggles are they suffering from? Um, and with those, just those, including the segment, who you're serving, and the triggers, what lead them to wanting to solve a specific struggle, you essentially have answers to the biggest, most important question. And you can essentially build everything on top of that. So the job, alternative, struggle, segment, and triggers.
Sorry, I have a follow-up sort of like insight here. So this reminds me of the mom test, right? Lou, you know the
Yeah.
book, right? So we're talking about the mom test where, if you give if you give inducing questions which sort of like, make people lie to you, right? Then you're gonna receive fucking lies as a result. You're not gonna receive insights that you're looking for. Is that where it's going?
Yes. But it's not just the. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. It's not just interviews, right? So when I talk about insight foraging, I really talk about anything where you could get insight. So it could mean going through communities on Reddit. It could mean being a fly on the wall in a cafe to watch how people behave. It could be doing your own mystery shopping and kind of behave as a shopper. It could be using your own intuition or knowledge or experience of the category. So I go way beyond just interviewing people to understand why they buy. But yes, the mom test talks about that quite a lot, but it's quite now about conversations with people. But when I talk about insights, it's bigger than that. It's not just conversations.
Yeah. By the way, what's the name of the book? It was the question that I wanted to ask. Is it the mom test? Like literally, is
Yeah,
it the name?
that's the
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
Yeah, by Rob Fitzpatrick.
Yeah. Really great book for everyone who's listening. But yeah, it's super interesting that you frame it like more in a broader sense than just doing conversations. And I have a question here. We had one person here on this podcast, and he's very deep into jobs to be done and
Hmm.
positioning as well. And what he is using in his work is something that is called synthetic personas. And I just wanted to ask you, like, have you heard about it? What is your take? So it's just basically you are conducting customer interviews, but
Yeah, yeah, with
you're
robots.
asking
With
LLMs. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Just what do you think about that?
Well, I wish him luck.
Okay.
Look, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine to have a quick understanding of what's going on and stuff like that. But from my experience, the true nuggets, the true things that you can take and amplify and really have fun with and bring way more intensity to, they are the things that you can only get from humans because there's flavor, there's color, there's things that you cannot get from a fucking, information retrieval system that is only based on the past and like summarize and give you the most likely significant, likely statistical answer to your question. It's humans will always try to find ways to fucking go faster, to do something that they have to do, but they want to avoid. Yeah, I wish most of them luck. I don't think they'll get what they actually need, but let them be, please, because that gives us an advantage. I can't remember the number of times I've had just a single line in a survey or a single conversation, a moment in a conversation with an actual customer or anything like that, where you're able to literally run the entire strategy from it. So I think that's my answer.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good answer. That's a good answer. How do you go about choosing your ICP? Like, okay, you need to talk to your ICP. You need not bullshit yourself about what your ICP thinks. You need to listen carefully and not just talk to them, but explore other options like Reddit and stuff. But
Mm.
uh, how do you go about, like, I have the maybe narrow ICP which buys my product or service right now, but I feel like as a founder, as an agency owner, I feel the market is limited there. How do you make this decision of focusing?
So, um, I think the traditional way of like picking an ICP tends to be around demographics or firmographic stuff, such as they're like in their 30s, they live in the suburbs and they own two dogs and they work at that place and they're CMO or they're something like that. I think starting with this is the absolute wrong way to start. The only way to start, if you truly want to bake in differentiation in your product, is to be able to give the right people a compelling reason to choose you. The right people, a compelling reason. Compelling reason means you solve problems, painful problems, specific problems that other alternatives do not solve, or at least not solve very well. So therefore, once you know those things, what are the things that prevent people from reaching the job, getting the job done, reaching their goal, once you identify the ones that you do well that alternatives do not, the next step is to find, okay, who struggles the most with those? Who, not necessarily in terms of pain, but also in terms of frequency. Quick example, if you're a taxi driver, you will struggle more with regular breakdowns and making sure you maintain your car more frequently and with more acutely than someone like me who drives his car just to drop my daughter in school when it rains. So you start that way, and then you infer your segment, your ICP, your target audience, whatever you want to call it, from those struggles. The problem is a lot of people start the other way around, and then they try to uh, like shove the problems back. It just doesn't work. So first you pick those, and then you think about, okay, what type of people struggle with them the most or more frequently? And this is where you can ask yourself things such as, are people in certain specific industries suffer from those problems more? Are people with those specific jobs tend to struggle with those problems more? Are people in like specific life situation or life stages tend to suffer from that more? And then you will only therefore have a profile that is directly linked to your differentiation and the way you're able to solve those problems without any of the artificial bullshit, such as, job titles if you don't need one. Now, just one last thing, it does not mean you forget about firmographics or demographics. It just means that for the definition of your segment, you don't necessarily need them. You don't have to force it. And then, of course, once you do like LinkedIn ads and things like that, you will have to infer maybe like what is the highest chance to reach this group? Well, maybe they're more likely to have this job title, but it shouldn't be the kernel of your strategy. It shouldn't be the core of your differentiation because those don't tend to not matter much.
Okay. Okay. Uh, But how do you go about, like you say that your unique positioning framework includes five things, right? If I understood correctly, correct me if I'm wrong. It's the job to be done, alternatives, ignored struggles, segment, and the category and the segment. So, but you say that you can actually be unique without inventing anything new. And like in very competitive category, I imagine that the job to be done is very similar. Alternatives are very
Yes.
similar. Like how
Yes.
do you go about
So
being unique in this landscape?
So in very commoditized category, the job alternatives, the category will be the same as your competitor, and they should be. If they're different, it means that you're like looking at it very differently, and it shouldn't be the case. If it's commoditized by default, you'll have like the job is the same, alternatives are the same, category will be the same. The struggles and how you can find some that are overlooked is why inside foraging is so important and why synthetic persona won't give you the answer. It can come from different things. It could be new problems, new specific things that happen that you can be the first to solve. It could be things that are so specific, they are underlooked. So, when we talk about LinkedIn engagement, maybe there is a subgroup out there who tends to struggle with being present on LinkedIn more than the average. And there's problems there that have been overlooked by others because maybe it's not big enough for them to care about and stuff like that, right? So that's why I use the word specificity, and to be specific so many times is like that's the key. You won't find $1 million problem that no one has tried to solve or don't care about, but you might find a couple of very specific problems that a specific group suffer from that others are completely overlooking or at least not solving well. And so that happens a lot, but that means you have to be willing to really go specific, go down very specifically about who exactly you're serving and start there. That gives you a beachhead, that gives you a head start, that gives you a kind of an advantage by being able to say, hey, we are the only one to solve that problem for that group of people. Therefore, that gives you a compelling reason to pick me over more famous, more popular alternatives, right? That's the force, the inertia, the gravity almost that pulls towards you. Once this is done, after a while, commoditization happens, and you cannot say in good faith, we are the only one that solved that struggle for that group. Not possible anymore. Everyone does the same thing. So that's okay. And that's where positioning is important. You need to be clear about what you do, but it loses its power in highly commoditized market, unless you have true innovation. And so this is why then you need to move to distinctiveness.
Can you lie about it? Like, can you just say we are the best tool out there, like many tools do?
Well, you can, but it's sleazy. You lie to yourself, you lie to your customer. They're not stupid. They'll see
Yeah.
it. They won't believe you anyway.
Okay. So did I understand you correctly that as market develops, you first want to be unique in your product or service, like the actual thing that you are doing, the actual thing that you're delivering. And when your market is more mature, you want to shift towards brand or positioning or reinvent the product to kind of, start the loop again. Is it the thing that
No,
you're saying?
no. So traditionally, this is what happens almost every single product that becomes successful, let's say in tech or even services. It's like first you obsess over a specific problem for a specific group of people. You gather momentum this way because you have an advantage over alternatives. You get resources back from them, money mostly, and stuff like that. After a while, uh, the only way to grow is to grow your customer base, and that means expanding to adjacent segments, essentially entering a highly commoditized market. At this stage, positioning becomes not a matter of can we find something unique about our product, and more about let's make sure that it's clear, let's make sure we're well positioned in a category that is in demand, but let's not obsess over trying to find a feature that others don't have because it's all covered. So therefore, at this stage, yes, you need to keep positioning, making sure it's still clear, making sure it's based on how the market changes. You need to be on top of it, but that's not what's going to give you this advantage anymore. And therefore, the only thing left is this creativity, the distinctiveness part, the ability to show, to be noticed in very crowded markets with a product that looks like the others, which is fine. Like, I mean, that's the most of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. You're saying that there is the distinctiveness and differentiation. Can you
Yes.
can you help me understand what is the difference between the two, and
Yeah.
how do you use the two?
So differentiation is linked to unique to your positioning. It's the ability to say we are the only one able to solve that specific problem for that group of people using those features. That's differentiation. Um, Distinctiveness is not a rational exercise. It's more of an irrational exercise. It's the ability to be noticed in very crowded market, very crowded situations, and look like yourself and look different from competitors. So it's like sticking out, right? For things that might not mean anything, for things that don't have to make a lot of sense. In fact, it's better if it doesn't. Like my rooster on the cover, wearing a purple beret, right? It's connected to my nationality. It's a bit of a nudge to that, but it has nothing to do with what I do for work. Like, why a fucking chicken? I could have picked something else that is French, right? So that's what distinctiveness is about. Is really like playing with a set of distinctive assets, amplify them, making sure they are getting seen in order for you to get a higher chance of being noticed when you run LinkedIn ads, when you show up in events, when you do podcast interviews. So those two concepts, and I'm glad you asked the question, those two concepts tend to be confused by people when they talk about like brand differentiation, for example, which does it's distinctiveness. You can't anyway. So yeah, those two concepts are separate. Are very importantly, you can have both. In fact, the best companies have both. They're able to have true differentiation in their product or the service, the way they do stuff, and true distinctiveness in the brand and the way they show up.
So distinctiveness is the thing that helps your buyers notice you, and differentiation is the thing that makes you different, right? So it is the thing that makes them choose you. Is it
Yeah,
correct?
yes. So distinctiveness is the ability to be noticed, but also remembered. It's the ability to when people think of a specific situation, a specific thing, they think of you first. It's to stay in that short list, right? To be considered. So it's not only being noticed, but also being remembered and refreshing those memory structures in people's brains so that they're more likely to remember you because memory just fades very quickly and all of that. So it's like it's a matter of likelihood. It's not a secret sauce. It's like it raises the likelihood that they will notice you, remember you, and stuff like that. And differentiation raises the likelihood that someone will pick your product over another because you offer something that is compelling to them, meaning that it solves a problem that they care about that others don't solve well, or not at all.
And how it's connected to jobs to be done. I mean, I can understand how being different, like differentiation, is connected to jobs to be done because it is kind of the result of solving a job to be done for your ICP, right?
Yes.
But distinctiveness, is it connected in any way, or it's just, some brand tricks,
It's not, I wouldn't say it brand tricks. Brands are the result of how humans think. It's not a marketer's gimmick. It's not a trick. That's how people think. We need to put things into buckets. We need help to retrieve memories, to take decisions. So brands are the result of that. They are not just created in a vacuum. So it's not a trick. It's the way people buy. You can start over tomorrow, wipe out entire humanity, and start with 100 people. You'll end up with brands in the future. Like it's just the way it is. That's just the way people think. And now I'm forgetting your question. So please let me know.
Yeah, I asked like jobs to be done. Do
Oh,
they
yes,
do
yes.
they have anything to do with
So,
distinctness?
so it doesn't. And that's why I also read the book is like jobs to be done is cool to really understand customer, why they make purchase decision, the momentum, like what makes them buy, when are they in market or not and stuff like that. But it stops being useful again once everyone understands their customer well enough, when all feature set are the same. Yeah, cool. You know the job to be done, but so does everyone else.
Okay, so you're treating it as a tool to win the competing game, to win the competition, but it's temporary, right? So
Yeah.
it can only give you so much, right?
Yes, unless you are able to really leverage stuff that are completely like unique to you. But like in our space, in the type of companies we're talking about, it's extremely unlikely, extremely rare. I mean, the classic example that everyone gives would be like IKEA, where it's a sum of different things that are very difficult to replicate because you need the stores, you need the supply chain, you need everything. It's rare, and usually is a combination of multiple things at once that create this kind of moat. But nowadays, good luck. It's just so hard to get anything close to that. And I just want to go to the chat briefly. I just saw something in passing. Pat said, distinctiveness, showing how you can uniquely achieve your customer job to be done. No, that's differentiation. Showing how you can uniquely achieve your customer job to be done is differentiation. That's
Guys, let me drive this a little bit. So I think before the webinar, Luis told us that he can bring some examples. So let's talk in examples. If you can bring
yeah,
examples of what is
I
distinctiveness,
can.
that's the other one. One. Second is someone in the chat asked about angles and offers. That's another fucking topic that I would like to discuss as well. So let's go with examples first, and then with
Yeah.
the angles and offers. All right.
Okay, boss. What type of example do we want? Like very specific tech stuff?
Yeah, let's go tech because most
Okay,
of yeah.
let me give you an actual example from an actual client. So I'm not going to say their name, but um, they are in the road management software industry. So they are able to give cities and towns a tool that you can just use your smartphone with, where you can, with your car, as someone who's in charge of public works, so fixing the roads, you mount your smartphone, and with AI, it detects potholes and stuff like that, right? Automatically. Alternatives would be what they call GIS stuff. So like I think it's essentially extremely expensive devices that scan the road millimeter by millimeter, which gives you a marginal gain. Now there is other um, alternatives. There's other competitors that do exactly this, like the smartphone thing. However, if we look at their differentiation, which still holds today, which we call kind of for them, it's the wedge, like the thing that they can uniquely solve, is that they run the full loop. So it's not like all of their direct competitors give them the raw data and that's it. The uh, they are the only one who are able to run the full loop. So they don't use any other tools to say, those are the problems. This is the way we're going to fix it. This is how to report back to the council to justify the budget and look back to the start so that you can see the changes of your road. So they are the only one who can do that. So one of the struggles would be they can't prove it. Like customers can't prove that the changes have been made properly. Well, with that company, they can, right? So you might say that others might be able to do it by just integrating with someone else or something else, but that means they're not solving that very well, right? So that problem is still underlooked. So that's differentiation because when they go to speak to prospect, they get it and they see something compelling. Um, that makes sense to them and gives them a reason enough to actually buy it, taking the decision to say, yeah, that makes sense. Let's fucking go for that. Right. So that's differentiation. Distinctiveness would be the fact that they drive around the council and towns and cities with fully wrapped vehicle with their full brand, where they, do some stunts in conferences where they dress in a specific thing so that they get noticed there. Um, but it doesn't, their logo, the color they use, the visual device that they use in their brochure, all of that stuff, right? So you can see how it's completely different. Like the two concepts, they complement each other very well, but one is rational, position based on the problem you solve. The other one is whimsical, a bit wacky, has to be weird in some way to be noticed. And those work really well together. So that's one example.
Interesting. If we take founder brand, specifically founder brand on LinkedIn, but in more like in a general sense as well.
Yeah.
How do you go about distinctiveness and differentiation in that regard? Like founder brand, should it be more about distinctiveness? Should it be more about, just being noticed and then, kind of pushing your narrative or what?
So it's a bit difficult because that's when it starts to break away from the definition of what a product or service is. If you could keep talking about the job to be done, founder brand is not something that helps you to get a job done, right? So you're already narrowing down to the distinctiveness part because a founder brand, first of all, is a face, human face, and that's one of a core distinctive brand asset. Could be human faces, could be mascots, anything that resemble a human or an animal. Those are things that people register very well in their memory, which is why a founder brand is a good brand asset. Having a narrative, a point of view, or something like this is also very misunderstood. What people tend to think it is just shouting random opinions into the void and being noticed just because you're being loud. That's not it, right? A point of view is the ability to protect your segment from harm by defending them, by saying, this is what I believe about the world. This is why my segment is being humiliated or whatever it is in pain. And this is what I propose. That's kind of roughly the thing. So it's still a very generous act. because it's about your segment. But yes, it's part of the distinctiveness exercise, absolutely. And yeah, I wouldn't classify a founder brand to be anything but means to be distinctive.
Are you saying that you're basically need to in your content pillars that you use for your social media content, that you're basically need to talk only about your segment, about your ICP, about the jobs to be done that you're doing, and or your category, or you can go like broader? Because I've seen some pretty big founder brands that were based like on the very broad, things, not
Yeah.
not just about their product.
Well, again, if it's a distinctive brand, if the principle of distinctiveness is to be noticed, to also be remembered, to refresh people's memory so they keep seeing you. There's a lot of cognitive biases and the way the brain works that goes around this idea of like the more you show up, the more you're liked just by sheer way of showing up. The more you show up, the more you're liked. The more you show up, the more they will notice you. It's like, when you see a car in GTA, you play GTA, you see that car, and then you see it everywhere. It's the same concept. So those are all linked to actually the way people think, the way people make decisions, and so it all makes sense. Um, you can talk about your product as much as you can. You can talk about other stuff as long as loosely it relates to the world of your people, and uh, or it helps you to be noticed, remembered, and whatnot. So some people share their personal lives and share selfies. That's one way to like keep refreshing memory structure. Some people don't do it. I rarely do it. You don't need to, but it's important to go back to foundations, right? Like the way people think, the way people buy, the way people remember. Those are all those concepts, like the differentiation, distinctiveness, and for this one specifically, distinctiveness. Um, I don't mean to interrupt your flow here, by the way. I like you're asking really good questions and you're listening to me, which is also rare for people asking questions. So thank you. There's a question from Pat, which is very, very important. How can one brand be whimsical and non-boring? So it's not that. So I misspoke, or at least I'm being a bit. I summarized things a bit. It's not about being whimsical, weird, wacky, and using the word fuck in your book title. It's just about finding a negative space. So whatever industry you're in, can you list down all the assets? So color, shape, tagline, sound, human faces. Forgetting a couple, but that's enough to make a point. Look at what direct competitors are doing in every single way and find negative space, meaning what are they not doing? What are they not saying? What are they not behaving like, And more likely than not, you will find a little something that you could be doing. Um, so that's one way. The other way is to amplify something that people notice about you and make it so intense they can't help but notice it. So that could be a lot of things. You could ask questions about if you're a founder brand, like if you're a founder leading the company, what do people like the most about you? And it doesn't have to be your customer service, which means nothing. It could be your French accent. It could be the way you listen and ask questions. It could be your red hair. I don't know how I get those examples, but anything like that you could potentially amplify and turn into something that truly is distinctive and get noticed. So I'm glad you asked the question, Pat, because yeah, it doesn't have to be whimsical, non-boring. It just have to stick out, and it doesn't have to be weird. It doesn't have to be untrustworthy. But just to let you know, in the UK, for example, there is a financial institution that is selling very serious services, who uses meerkats as a mascot with a Russian accent. So it's it doesn't have to make sense, and in fact, it's better if it doesn't, which is one of the other principle. The more meaning-free your assets, your distinctiveness is, the better. Meaning-free, meaning it doesn't have to mean something clearly to customer if the logo has a specific shape or anything like that. It doesn't have to, because if it does, chances are competitors will have the same meaning. And if it does, it will clog customers' brain. Like if you all use the same type of meaning and use those assets to illustrate this meaning, everyone will end up the same. And so this is why critical to fucking go super distinctive, meaning free, meerkats or a color or like anything that makes you laugh. There is millions and millions of possibilities, and it doesn't have to be just one um, weird thing or whimsical. And yes, post hog is a great example. I mean, Mutiny is another great example. They are using a raccoon. That's again, that's the mascot. Post hog, they use hedgehogs. That's heavy animal slash mascot. But actually, you know what? This is going live next week, but I'm gonna share with you now in as the first people to ever see it.
Wow.
I've run a state of brand distinctiveness in tech, audited 100 companies, and found that only one out of 100 is truly distinctive. 78 are just generic, and gives you a lot of examples of companies, the top 10 doing some things right, not everything right, and how what distinctiveness means in the bigger sense. So give you plenty of examples. Like Linear doesn't use mascots or anything like that, but they are able to be distinctive because they use a very specific visual device, like the sphere, like with the lines, as well as the extreme dark mode that you use everywhere, as well as the extremely like editorial things about like they have a saying that they keep repeating. I don't remember this one. So anyway, I hope that gives you some examples of what I mean by distinctiveness. It's a long read, it's a full study, but it's I think it gives a bit more depth to what I'm trying to communicate here.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks a lot for sharing this. Can we share it with the recording when we
Yes.
awesome. Thanks a lot. We will share the link. I just opened it and it's a really long read, so looking forward to read it. Can you maybe you have one specific example in mind, and can you break it down to the things that you mentioned in your framework, which are monster, POV, spices, and assets?
Yeah.
Are those the parts of being distinctive, or how do you think about this?
So the monster is your ability to point the finger at something that is the reason why your customers struggle with something, struggle with the problem you solve, and that helps you to get them on their side. It's why all religions exist. You point at the big man in the sky and say, "This is why this is shit," instead of saying, "This is just random, happens all the time." It helps the human brain to comprehend things if you say it's that fault. So, I point the finger at AI, the noise created with AI nowadays. A lot of people make the mistake of pointing the finger at direct competitor, but that's not usually not what happens because they are not responsible for the struggle that your customers are facing. Um, so they are essentially uh, you can't have a strong point of view without defining the monster. You can't have spices. I'll define them quickly without defining the point of view. Right? It's like you need to do the monster first. So first, what is the thing that is causing your people struggle? Second, your point of view is essentially a way to describe that, to say how to protect your segment from harm by defining the monster and saying how you build things differently. Spices is my take on brand values would mean nothing, and spices are the actual behavior. What are the things you're going to do that are too something, too simple, too weird, too whatever, to really like show how you're going to behave the way your point of view, like your point of view are your words and the spices are your behavior. And then once you have all of that, you can define assets, and it's much easier to do. So once you know that you are like too boringly simple, let's say, well, there's a lot of things that when you look at your negative space in the industry, like what would a boringly simple brand behave like? What shape would they use? What color would they use? What would they say and how would they say it? It helps you to like close your eyes and think of this kind of alter ego of a brand that you have in front of you and say like, how would we actually behave if we are not afraid? So yeah, in the book, every single element builds up upon the previous one, and that helps you a lot to like not feel overwhelmed and not, you have one direction.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Moving to LinkedIn, because this is something that like we work with a lot. Uh, I think I heard your take that value in LinkedIn is not in posts or comments, but actually in DMs, like in the conversation. Is it too like
Yeah,
did I misread you?
yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's not as black and white. But my point is more that a lot of people think LinkedIn as I don't want to post, while actually just sending DMs and even comments, like both is fine. Like again, it goes back to the same thing. It's like being noticed, being remembered, reaching out to the right people at the right time. That's the fourth stage of my book, the continuous reach, like the GTM or whatever. So I'm not against any, but it tends to happen a lot that people forget the DMs part a lot. Just
Yeah.
talk to people.
Among founders? You see it among founders or among GTM teams or
I'm also among founders where they're attracted to the idea of let's create something that is viral. Like they are starting to be addicted a bit to the algorithm and to the likes and to the performance and to like looking at their chart versus last year and bullshit like that. My argument is that if your prospect hang out on LinkedIn, you don't have to post a single thing if you don't want to. There's plenty of ways to do the same thing. As long as they're there, you can find a way to reach out, right?
yeah. What's your go-to way of reaching out? Is it more about relevancy and being like super direct? Like I don't know, not pitch slapping, but being direct and being very targeted, or is it more about nurturing, playing the long game, staying in touch for a while?
So I have a very specific flow that I've perfected over the last year. I rarely talk about it because people don't ask me the question, but it stems from one of my motto, which is when in doubt, give, give, give. So I'm so proud of that book that what happens is that if I see someone who interacts with me in my comments or engage with one of my posts or just send me a DM or I have other stuff, but that's like the biggest ones. Then if they fit my segment, the type of people I serve, then I offer my book. I essentially reach out to them by DM and say, hey, don't know if you read my book. If not, I'd love to send it to you. No catch.
Paper
They reply, yeah,
or PDF?
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Paper
super cool.
copies. So I have a system using Cloud Codes and HubSpot where on LinkedIn, I've built a little extension on a Google Chrome extension that logs my messages. And I have a skill in Cloud Code that orders books for me. All I have to do is put the address and then it orders it through the KDP autocopies, like essentially through Amazon autocopies. So it's like I just pay for printing and shipping. And so then sometimes they respond, not all the time, but more often than not. And I send them the book for free and I send them more than one. So if someone says, yeah, I love to read your book, and I know they're like a CMO or VP of marketing at a SaaS startup, I send 4 or 5, always. And then they enter into a small, simple automation and hotspot that create tasks for me, which is essentially, okay, have they received it? In fact, I have another skill that runs every morning that checks for Amazon order status to see whether it's been delivered or whatnot. I ask them if they received it. If they received it, I then push them to read it. And then if once they read it, I then try to get on a call to see how potentially I could help them. So that's the one thing I do. Is it magic? Does it work all the time? No. Does it take time? Yes. But it feels good, right? So like that's my advice to everyone listening. If you're struggling, you don't know what to say to people. Um, how can you be generous? What can you give? Because everyone tries to fucking take. What can you give?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also I also like the fact that it is a paper copy because it's a very, warm gesture. It is permission based, right? So you first wait for them to accept. You need their address, yeah. So
Yes, they need to send it to me for sure. Yeah.
okay. Can you share, like, super curious, what are the conversions into reading? Because now people don't want to read too much, right? I struggle with reading after interacting with LLMs a lot. Maybe it's a personal thing. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
I'm
no,
becoming a number.
it's absolutely. I mean, people struggle to read, and they like there's so much you can get just from LLMs. Um, it's I would say, oh, I I could run the data on this. I never done, but like gut feeling, maybe 40% of people who received it will end up saying, "I've read it or some of it for sure." Um, and I play the long game. Like sometimes it's enough to say, hey, maybe we should go on a call. I can look at whatever you're up to through the lens of the book and essentially like joining what they're struggling with my methodology and have them this way, and maybe that could lead to something. But most times it's not the case, and I just know that if it's such a good book, I'm proud of it. I know it's helpful that even if it doesn't lead on anything right now, it might in the future, right? Like with Stefan, I remember him from years ago. We were talking on, it's not like we're talking every day, but he's in my radar and stuff like that. And those are, now I'm invited to this webinar. Who knows what would happen from it? Who knows, right? But it's like the serendipity, increasing your surface lock area, or whatever the fuck, your lock area's surface, or whatever the fuck. Um, so it's the long game. I've been in this business for more than a decade, and it's one of those things that are difficult to replicate when everyone is switching from different hacks and shit to stay at the distance and to be generous and try to be of value. I think it pays back. It pays you back in a while. And I can sleep at night.
Yeah. Do you think sometimes it's a wrong advice? Like, I mean, when you
Yes.
are in the consultancy space where trust matters a lot, where you don't have, thousands, 10,000s of users, of customers, it definitely feels like a way to go. And we preach the long game as well. It is the foundation of the product that we build. But, you know, shouldn't be true all the time, right? So when it is wrong, like where do you draw the line?
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, like if you go back to the methodology in my book, if it depends on who you're serving and what you're selling, the category you're in, and what is the buying cycle of such categories. I think it's like it probably links to purchase frequency, right? If it's a service you buy every week versus a service you only buy every 10 years, on average, strategy would differ dramatically. So playing the long game doesn't mean sending one DM a day, offering something. That's not it. It's more like not being a sleaze bag, not trying to like not taking people for granted, being of value, being helpful, being just a genuine nice person. I mean, that's all I'm saying, right? It's and don't do stuff that you wouldn't do. Uh, don't do stuff that you wouldn't like others to do to you. It's hard sometimes because we all have targets. We have like our family to feed and feel under pressure all the time. I know it's hard, but it's there's something about it, you know. I think there's a reason why I'm still in business, and I've seen so many people just burn out and crash and stop doing whatever they're doing. It's the long game is the only game that doesn't burn you out after 6 months or 9 months, I think.
Yeah. I have I often talk to users, and a lot of our users are doing outreach in some form or
Yeah.
like lead generation. And very often I ask them like, how long is your interaction with your prospect? How long is your sequence? Like whether it's like email sequence or LinkedIn sequence or whatever. And usually it's like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And after that, when I ask them, like, how long do you think your buyer is gonna take them to make a decision? How long is the actual buying decision window? and they say, oh, it's like 6 months. And I ask, like, why is it 3 weeks then? And what I very often hear is that the reason people do this is to actually manage their capacity, because they need to, churn through their leads. They need to have pipeline flowing. And how I like to think about it is that, especially with AI and with systems, your effort per prospect that you spend and your length of your interaction is not directly related. You actually can keep the effort very low, or relatively low, and keep the interaction window as long as possible. And I really like what you mentioned about the Claude Code skill and the simple automation that lets you do the very human thing that feels like it is not scalable, but it is actually scalable, and keeping the presence for long, because I think it's the cheat code.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I switch channels after a while. If they don't respond to me on LinkedIn, I send an email. I also send postcards written via, the machine type of thing. You can automatically send it via an API actually. And I say in the first line, this isn't my handwriting, but those are my words. So yes, it's like it's a long-term thing, especially like the type of stuff I sell. It takes a while, and yeah, like if you just show up for two weeks and then you burn your leads essentially. You just come across as a sleazebag, rushing through stuff and making them feel like they're being sold to. Yeah, the long game I think is a good point what you're saying. If people take on average 9 months, 6 months to buy something, then that's what you're in for. You need to be patient. You need to play the long game. You need to build rapport. You need to check whenever they post and maybe leave a good comment and reach out again and offer something of value. Again, it's the way you would do it with a normal relationship if you're not a fucking psychopath or sociopath. You take your time, and it's hard to do nowadays, but you can do so much. Like, for example, the research I just posted inside the chat. That's going to be a way for me to reactivate people I've been talking to the last few months. And there's always new things you can send. And yeah, look, I'm sure that if you talk to direct response people who are into like Alex Hormozy and all of those people who are really into like very, very hardcore American, mindset of selling, and making numbers and stuff like that. I'm sure they would disagree with me, and that's completely okay. And in fact, I work from my garden office. I don't have a huge house and don't have Lamborghinis or anything like that, but I'm happy. Um, yeah, I'm not a multimillionaire like he is, but again, I can sleep at night, and it's just not me. So it's again, everything I've said so far is my perception of things and the way they are linked to my beliefs.
Yeah, super cool. It's actually one other thing that I wanted to share. We did some customer interviews for Extrovert for our own product. And
Yeah.
I was asking founders and like sales leaders of small teams, GTM teams, about their struggles on LinkedIn. Like why do they consider using any kind of software or any kind of outreach? And I was imagining that all they would talk about is numbers, like our reply rate is low, or our acceptance rate is low, or whatever. But more often than not, they were talking about emotions. Like, we feel weird reaching out and people tell us to go fuck ourselves, and I just don't want to do this. And that's why I'm seeking the other way. And it was interesting for me that getting back to jobs to be done, this is the very unusual job to be done of being, not just optimizing for efficiency, but optimizing for your, how you feel. Super cool. This is a very good moment, in my opinion, to wrap up. It was super amazing talk. If anyone has some questions, I think we have time for one or
Yes.
two. But
I
before
can
we
stay for longer if there's questions.
Yeah, but before we wrap up, could you please tell the audience, like, what are your services and who can you help, apart from just, sending free books and giving away free stuff, but who can actually benefit from working with you? Who should reach out to you, and who is the ICP that you can help with?
So yeah, thanks for asking this. I typically help established B2Bs struggling with like new, like existential threats such as AI showing up, more and more competitors, or they need to raise a Series A or Series B, need to get ready for that and stuff like that. So I tend to work with startups. So B2B tend to be sales-led quite a lot at the minute, struggling to stand the fuck out, need positioning and distinctiveness, but they don't know they need distinctiveness. But that's what I tend to do. Everything is on my website. Everything is in the open, including my pricing. I'm just going to put it there. And thanks for asking that question. It's all in there. And I do help startups under 1 million. I do sprints. Um, for above 1 million, I do sprints that are slightly longer, but it's only sprints. I don't do retainers. And I pride myself in being extremely straightforward, honest, and I'm not gonna fucking bullshit you if I don't think I can help. And yeah, that's what I do now. I used to do a lot more stuff, but I've stopped and eating my own dog food, uh, and just doubling down on one thing.
Awesome. Awesome. We will include all the links in the replay, and after we send the replay in the email as well. If anyone wants to follow your work and is not ready to be a customer yet, what is the best channel? Like LinkedIn? Is it like reading a
LinkedIn.
book? What is it?
Yeah,
LinkedIn?
LinkedIn, like the best thing to do is just add me on LinkedIn, send me a message or something. I'm more than happy to send you my book for free. I don't work with people who haven't read my book, and that's kind of my only criteria. It's helped so much in the engagement. Like we use the same words, the same understanding. It's so much faster to go through stuff. That's why I'm able to do sprints are quite fast and super, super efficient. So it's not just a flex, it's true. But yeah, LinkedIn is, I spend so much time on LinkedIn. It's sad. In my DMs, like I mean, I send DMs every day, all day. It's fucking nuts.
Awesome. Yeah, so follow Louis on LinkedIn, send him a DM. Maybe you get a free book, or maybe some good advice in exchange. Thanks a lot for being here. I really enjoyed the talk. Super awesome. Thanks a lot for everyone for taking the time. And yeah, see you around. Have a good one.
Thank you. And I just want to say before we
Sure.
stop this recording, thank you for asking great questions. And thank you for listening to me. Thank you for, yeah, it was a very thoughtful conversation. And thank you for that because it's hard to do. I know it's hard to do on your side. So yeah, thank you. I had a great time.
Appreciate it. Appreciate the kind words. Have a good one. Take care. Bye.